Hi and welcome to my channel. I'd like to take you with me on a couple of trips that I've made to Leigh-On-Sea in Essex. And part of the reason I want to do this is because they weren't 100% successful, and I want to discuss why sometimes unsuccessful photographic trips are actually the ones you learn most from. Before I go any further, I'd just like to thank everybody because my number of subscribers has just gone over the 100, and I know that's small beginnings, but it's been quite hard work getting here, and I so appreciate all of you who've signed up. I'm going to be trying to give you as much good content as possible, and there's lots of stuff coming up. So, on to what I was actually going to talk about, which would be my interesting, if somewhat abortive, trips to Leigh-On-Sea, which is a lovely little seaside town just round from Southend in Essex. And both times I've been, I haven't, I think, done the place justice, and I'm going to have a look at why. The first trip that we did to Leigh-On-Sea was on the 31st of May this year, and as luck would have it, it was probably the hottest day that we've had in a very, very poor summer, with a completely cloudless sky, or virtually completely cloudless, and it was bank holiday, which really I should have realised that a little seaside town that's got quite a large number of pubs in it would be absolutely heaving on a bank holiday, and I wasn't wrong. Added to the fact that it was hot as hell, and there really was so much contrast. I knew I was going to be up against it. Also working with a camera that I hadn't actually had that long. To stack difficulty upon difficulty, I was actually testing out the Rollei Retro 400 film, and I hadn't bargained on the fact that it was going to be basically very contrasty as well. So I'd set myself up in many ways for failure. So, in my enthusiasm to use my newly or reasonably newly acquired RB67, I'd pretty much forgotten all the basic rules that I've learned over the years, which is that perfect planning prevents piss-poor performance, pardon the expression, but it's absolutely true. I hadn't given some thought to the fact that the place might be more crowded than I wanted it to be. If I'd have gone looking for street shots with a camera that's good for street shots, which the RB, bless it, isn't, that would have been fine. But I was going out with the idea of getting some lovely seaside town shots, which would have been nice boats and water. And I hadn't bothered to check the tide. So when the tide's out in that particular part of the Thames estuary, there kind of isn't any water. It goes out miles, and you are left with wonderful estuarine mud. And I hadn't actually put on any boots. So I was there with my cloth trainers, which meant I couldn't actually go out too far to take any photographs, although you wouldn't want to go out too far anyway in the estuary mud, because you'll sink up to your waist and the sea can come in pretty quickly. I believe it can come in at anything up to 20 miles an hour as the tide's coming in, so you've got to be careful. But I hadn't planned for any of this, and I was using a 400 ISO film on a super bright day. Again, all of the things I should have thought about. So the results, which you'll see in a minute, are not some of my favourite. But it reminded me again that you need to use that. To plan first. It's no good out wandering out with your camera going, I'm going to take a great photograph, because there's planning involved in it, and you need to get what you want to take and how you're going to take it sorted in your head. Basically, everywhere I went, the light or the tide or the people were just slightly against me. I couldn't get the right angles, and stupidly, I hadn't taken a tripod, which meant I had to hand hold this brute, admittedly with a grip on it, but it was still a huge strain, and I didn't get all of my photographs absolutely sharp because of that. So I kind of drew a line under that and determined not to plan so badly again. Well, last weekend I thought, well, I'll go back, not exactly to Leigh-On-Sea, but to a nature reserve which is just along from it, which is called Two Trees Island. Well, we'll get on to that. Well, here I am at Two Tree Island, seemingly lacking in timber spot out in Essex near Leigh-On-Sea, and I've got the Mamiya RB67 and I'm trying to get some old boats. Well, it looks like I'm going to be defeated by looming thunderclouds. So we're going to move and see if we can find another location. If not, we're going to go head back and develop the film and see what goes on with it. So, in spite of a local chap telling us there were lots of old boats to photograph, there weren't. And those that were across a somewhat treacherous area of salt marsh, which I didn't have a long enough lens with the 180mm that I had for the Mamiya to pull-in views across. I'd have sunk without trace had I attempted to go and walk across it. So I come out at the wrong time of day, certainly in the first shoot and in the second shoot, in the very uninteresting light. I'd not packed a tripod on the first shoot. I had the wrong speed of film. These are all things that I could have planned for. I could have gone out earlier. I could have taken the right film. Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is that complacency and thinking that you've got all the answers tends to mean that you don't have. And what you do is you go out and you waste film. Luckily, I didn't waste that much film, particularly on the second shoot. And also, we spotted from Two Tree Island some fascinating ruins, which turned out to be Hadley Castle on the hill overlooking. It's a beautiful old castle ruin. And although I took the camera up there and went to take a couple of photographs, but again it was far too crowded and the light was uninteresting. But I know now that it's open very early in the morning and it will have the sun coming up behind it, so it will be an interesting area to go and explore, and I can take my tripod. So you don't lose by experiences like those two shoots. Firstly, it's taught me when I'm taking the Mamiya out to always take the tripod. I should have known that anyway. I've used one in the studio before. I've just never taken it out and used it on a regular basis, but yeah, a tripod's a sensible answer. The other one is that I should be checking times and tides more regularly. I spent most of my working life as a photographer photographing people, so that was not usually an issue. But I'm learning, and I'm hoping that people are watching me are learning. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this, then perhaps you might like to hit that like button and maybe get notifications about when I'm putting some new stuff up. And if you really like it, then perhaps you might think about subscribing, because it really helps the channel, and also your comments help, and I'd really like to have your ideas on where I should be steering the channel. Do you want to see more of the medium format? Do you want to see more of smaller formats? Do you want to see more 5.7 or more 5.4? I'd like this to be a kind of joint decision with everybody. Anyway, you take care until the next time I see you. Bye.